Collections like the Wou Collection, so encyclopedic in its breadth, really don't exist anymore, and they definitely don't appear on the market.
This collection teaches the history and the craftsmanship of classical Chinese art. It's definitely one of the most magnificent collections that I've worked with.
This March, Sotheby's New York presents part 1 of the collection of Dr Wou Kiuan in a sale entitled A Journey Through China's History. Over 140 lots, porcelain, bronzes, lacquers, paintings.
This collection is very comprehensive and extensive in epigraphical works. It symbolizes the development of language
from the early Neolithic cultures through to the early 20th century. Wou Kiuan was born in 1910, the son of a rather famous political figure in early 20th century China. At a relatively young age, he was sent to study in France. He earned his doctorate in law from the Sorbonne in Paris, and he stayed in Europe, representing the nationalist government at its embassies in London and Paris. Buying heavily through the 1950s and 1960s, Wou was one of the very few, if not the only, Chinese bidders active in Europe. And this gave him a distinct advantage in that he could read and understand the significance of many of the inscriptions. He was seeing appear at auctions extremely important imperial commissions and works of art, and he felt, I would say, a responsibility to preserve them, to educate the public about China's glorious history.
The way he collected, it was very academic.
More akin to an institution or a museum than it is to a private collection.
He assembled inscribed bronzes, highly treasured, because the characters and the pictograms are basically the earliest form of writing in the history of China.
By the mid-1960s, Wou had formed a formidable collection of close to 1,000 objects. The entire chronological visual history of China. And in 1968, he opened the doors to the Wu Lianpai Museum, named in honor of his father. One of my favorite pieces is the 14th century lacquer dish, carved with 3 lush hibiscus blooms. Lacquer production was an incredibly time-consuming process. Thin layers of lacquer had to be allowed to dry, polished, and repeated until the design could be carved through. The entire process could take years. There certainly appears to be no other lacquer of this size carved with this design.
The size of this vessel is quite compact, but it has this monumental presence. It has architectural elements, which is actually quite rare for Chinese bronzes. The body of the vessel resembles a well-structured building. The vertical flanges are just like the pillars. The cover, the roof, there is a single pictogram, De, which should be the name of a clan or the name of a person. And this bronze form is called Fangyi, and therefore the name De Fangyi.
This large blue and white lotus bouquet charger was produced during the Yongle period, from 1403 to 1424. Lotus bouquet chargers of this type were popular and were widely exported to the Middle East. Measuring over 40 centimeters, a somewhat unusual combination of lotus flower and water weeds tied with a ribbon, the Wou charger is one of the largest examples of this design.
This bronze is very special because of its long 27-character inscription, identifying the maker to be someone named Dai Shuzhen from the Dai state of the Zhou dynasty. He made this food vessel for himself, for his longevity, and for the eternal use of his descendants. Some scholars believe Dai Shuzhen was a member of the Dai royal family. Others have suggested Dai Shuzhen could be one of the kings of the Dai states.
Now, this remarkably large jade boulder has been carved in the form of a grotto, and seated here we have a luohan, carved in this very distinctive style, which must be reminiscent of Guangxiu's painterly style. And then the Qing Emperor's calligraphy. This is the poem he penned, having seen the paintings himself, and we have his seals around it.
Handling these ancient relics, deciphering the pictograms, the characters, feels like you're connecting with the past. We're looking at a legendary collection.
One of the last remaining collections of Chinese art of this kind in the West. Part 1 of the Wou Kiuan collection, which is offered for sale in New York this March Asia Week, represents a unique and extraordinary opportunity to own a piece from this remarkable collection that represents a microcosm of the museum as a whole.